Story 1. The Fire. Where I grew up, there's an abandoned factory that the high school and college kids will all visit and hang out, usually around Halloween, because it's scary enough in the dark. It also houses a decent amount of homeless people, so every once in a while, the cops will come in and do a sweep and force everyone there to leave. One night, my uncle is working, and there's a call to the non-emergency line saying there's a lot of movement in the building. The caller says they can see a light on in every floor, except the first floor. My uncle and a few other officers respond. No more than 10 minutes have passed when my uncle gets there. There's no one around, but there's plenty of light pouring out of the openings where the windows once were. The officers all agreed that it looked more like fire than flashlights, so they called the fire department as a precaution. Then they walked to the first floor and started searching for the stairs. They find them and ascend to the second floor. There's no light anywhere. Same with the third, and the fourth, and the fifth floors. They sweep the entire building, every nook and cranny, even the rooftop. There's no light source, and no one there that they can find. The fire department arrived shortly after. They'd went in, and they couldn't see anything from the outside, other than the subtle glow of the flashlights that the cops were using. It was faint. Nothing like what my uncle and the other officers had seen when they rolled up on the scene. My uncle said that what was even more unsettling was that none of the homeless areas, which usually comprised piles of trash along with cardboard boxes and blankets, were there. It wasn't that they didn't find any homeless people, but they didn't find any sign of anyone that had ever been there at all. Ever. Story 2. Ice cream. When I was in my early 20s, I was employed as a security enforcement officer through a local private investigation firm. I worked 12P to 12A at an upscale theater, and then my boss called and told me I was assigned to the YMCA construction site that everyone kept calling out from. The sooner I come, the better, he said. So after working 12 hours at the theater, I spent another 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. at that site. By the time I arrived home, it was around 9:30. And I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open. But I received a phone call. It was my brother. His birthday was that day, and I'd completely forgotten about it. My whole family and I went shopping, and then we ate at a restaurant, about 45 minutes from my house. At around 1 p.m., I told them that I had to leave. I just couldn't keep my eyes open. As I was driving home, no amount of music or driving with the windows down could keep my eyes open. I started drifting to the opposite side of traffic. I decided I best pull over. I looked around, and there was an ice cream shop, so I stopped in. It was a weird place for it to be, because the highway I was driving on was a smaller country highway. It was on the outskirts of town, so an odd place to put a shop that would rely on foot traffic. There was a woman out front, asking if I'd stop for ice cream. I didn't want to be rude and just tell her I wanted a nap, so I said yes. I went inside. It was rather junky. It looked like they'd bought their furniture from old barbecue restaurants and just threw it in randomly into the building. The same woman was now behind the counter. I said I wanted 2 scoops of chocolate on a cone and pulled out my bank's debit card. "Oh, we don't take cards here," she said, and handed me the ice cream cone. I dug around my pockets. I went back out to the truck for change. I never keep anything but my debit card on me. I found 50 cents, and I gave it to her. She said the price was $1.80, but that'll do. I didn't know what else to do, because I was half asleep and she had already given me the ice cream cone, despite the fact that I was attempting to pay with the debit card as she was making it. I said thanks and walked outside to stand and eat it. I'm a pig when I eat, so by the time I was finished, I already had some ice cream on my face and uniform. Before I could make it to the truck, the woman walks out to talk to me. "You look troubled," she said, "but whatever you're going through, you'll be fine." I get in my truck and leave. I get home, and I fall asleep. The next day I get my uniform ready when I notice the chocolate ice cream on it. The ice cream shop wasn't far from my house, so I felt I should stop in and pay her what I owed. I pulled into the building, but it was locked. The building was empty, and there was a sheet of dust caked over the doors, like no one had touched them in years. Story 3. Snowy. I recently moved into a house that I believe is haunted. I had heard the stories before I moved in, and with no fear, I moved in anyway. We have affectionately referred to this spirit as Snowy because he makes his presence known in the wintertime. My boyfriend experiences far outnumber mine, but he has lived here longer, so without further ado, I will tell my tales. My boyfriend's first experience was in the basement. He and his former roommate were checking out the possibility of putting a weight bench in the basement when they found a room with an electric organ and a lit light in it. No matter what they tried, the light would not shut off. Finally, the roommate got mad and kicked the light repeatedly until it went out. And that's when the strange things started happening. The first oddity was the sound of footsteps in the upstairs apartment, although no one lived there and no one had access to it at those times. The next very strange thing was when the roommate's 2 kids were there and they were asleep in their room. But the roommate and my boyfriend both heard the sound of footed pajamas running in the kitchen. The roommate even remarked about his kids must be getting out of bed. But when he went to yell at them, they were sound asleep, and they wasn't even wearing their feety pajamas that night. There was also the sound of somebody walking up to the front door on the porch when there was nobody there. One time my boyfriend and I went out to investigate when we heard footsteps in the snow, but saw no footprints. Also, a distinct sound of glass breaking in the living room has interrupted many games of pool in the next room, and has been heard by as many as 6 people in the same room at the same time. When we got a new dog, her first day there was spent barking at a wall and aggressively jumping at nothing. My sister now lives in the upstairs apartment and has had many strange things happen to her as well. She woke up at 3 in the morning to her daughter's clock radio on a religious station. The clock was not set, nor did she have it tuned to that station, ever. This happened multiple times in a row. Being that her daughter isn't even 2 yet, and the radio is out of her reach, we don't think that her daughter was the one who set the radio. A friend suggested replacing a light in that cellar room, and maybe the spirit will go back down to the cellar. But right now we are content living with Snowy until the spirit proves to be hostile or angry. Right now he's pretty easy to get along with. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give me a thumbs up. I really do appreciate it. If you have a story you would like for me to read, send me an email at hauntedfamilypodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Bye.